But, no. So I have Jesse. Is it Akister? I think I've already answered that, right? Yeah, that's a great surname.
Yeah.
I don't think you had to do anything for it, but just to let you know, that's a great surname.
I like it.
Yeah, it works. I have Jesse on the podcast today. Basically, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of what I know of you. You give a quick rundown, and then we just get on with whatever the fuck we want to talk about.
Love it.
Delicious. So Jesse was put in touch with me through Mr. Brock Martin, and through the Strong Fit community. She was Debort. She was living in Dubai at the time, Canberra girl. Through the Strong Fit community, met Brock, and Brock's like, "Oh, you gotta meet Jesse." And that's not how he talks.
Kind of.
No. Brock's a very relaxed guy. He's a good man, and he put us in touch. And
Amazing
you
guy.
came back to have a rendezvous here quickly in Canberra with a couple of gyms, basically, and coffee.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Train, coffee, meet people like yourself.
And then you're gonna, absolutely, which has been great. And then you're going back to Dubai.
Yeah.
Cool. So those listening who are yet to meet the lovely Jessie, give us a quick rundown.
So that all was true.
Okay. Yep.
He's not making up things.
No.
I am a powerlifter, a CrossFit coach, and have been following the Strong Fit stuff for like a few years now. But I spent like 11 years in Dubai. I was cabin crew, so I spent a lot of years flying. I worked for a royal family, did 5 years flying for their private airline.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then went into education. I was working for a school that taught protocol and business etiquette. So generally training for people that are in either government, so working specifically in protocol departments for governments, or large corporates that had protocol departments or their corporate communications that are dealing with sort of large-scale events where they would have like heads of state or VIPs attending.
Right.
So that's what I've done the last few years at the same time as coaching and just getting my fitness on.
So when you say getting your fitness on, because I've seen you share photos of pre-fitness Jessie, right, which went through many different stages of development.
Party animal Jessie.
Yeah. To becoming like a coach, and so you're very well respected where you, from what I understand. I've never been to Dubai. I've always passed Dubai.
Well, we'll have to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, just set up a seminar. I'll come for sure. But you're obviously very well respected there. You're going back there to take on a good position in the gym that you used to work in. What sort of brought you into coaching? How long ago was that? Because I don't think I've had this conversation with you yet. So.
No, we haven't talked about this. I put my back out on a flight.
What were you doing?
It was like repetition. Like at those days, I never trained. I used to like drink and party a lot and eat, and then so I was especially private flying. We would do these like meal services where we would have to plate all of the food, and it was like quite a lot of like lifting, and you'd have like giant plates of like china and crystal and things that you would be like moving onto trolleys and things. And at some point I like picked something up and moved, and suddenly I had this like spasm in my back, and I'm like, oh god, we're in trouble. So that trip I was like on like anti-inflammatories and pain medication for the entire week, just trying to get through the week. When I got home, I went to the doctor, and the osteopath said, well, you got to get fit or it's going to keep happening. So it's like the best medical advice you could get. Unfortunately, you don't hear that often.
No, you don't, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that was sort of the thing that got me to go and start training and just doing something. And then the next thing, like you know me well enough to know that I'm relatively competitive.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not one to like just start and be like, oh, well, this is enough. I want to be the best at what I do. So the like circuit classes and those things, it was like, well, now I'm like the fittest person in the class. Like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And a friend told me about CrossFit, so I went and tried a CrossFit class.
When was this?
That would have been start of 2012.
Okay.
And, you know, everyone's first story of CrossFit, like they do the first CrossFit class and it kills them, and for a week they can't like walk or whatever.
Yeah.
It was essentially where I was at. But I was like in this place where suddenly everyone was fitter than me, and there were girls that could do things that I couldn't do, and I'm like, okay, I want to like prove to myself that I can do that. 2013, I did my first open and was one of the fittest girls in the gym and went to regionals.
Right.
And I was like, well, got to regionals, and obviously in those days it was the barrier for entry to get to regionals was a little easier. And we were in the Asia region, so again, it wasn't as competitive as some other regions. But I remember being there and seeing like the best people in that region and going, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to go to regionals and be strong enough to do all of this and belong there. So that was my motivation for training for the next 3 years.
Right.
Then I went to regionals again in 2016.
Okay.
And during that time, like by then I was in my early 30s, and I was like, God, this is a lot of work. I have a full-time job, and this commitment to be able to be at this level is huge. And I was already more naturally like inclined to like the heavy lifting rather than like the gymnastic stuff and conditioning. So
basically anything that's not lifting.
Yeah, exactly. All the other things I'd prefer not to do. Yeah. So like I was chatting to a friend, like my best friend was my training partner and was on the team with me that year. And I'm like, I think...
So you went to regionals 2016 as a team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it 3-3 then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I said to her, look, I've decided once we get back from regionals, I'm going to look for a powerlifting coach. And I'm just going to change the focus of my training. And that same... Like, the next day, I walked into the gym and someone was like, oh, have you met this new guy? He's Swedish powerlifter. And I'm like chatting away, and he's
females like a lifter's dream. Like, oh, Swedish powerlifter, really? All right, well, where's Sven? Let's introduce me.
Yeah, so
where's Sven? I need a massage.
Well, oh God. So
please tell me his name's Sven.
His name's Patrick.
Sorry to
let you down.
Oh, I just let everyone watching and listening down.
I know.
God fucking damn it, Patrick.
So Patrick had been powerlifting for years and years, was like a national level lifter, had coached a lot of like national team people, and so I was like, well, I need a coach. How do you feel about coaching me? So he got me through my first few comps and sort of laid the way for me starting in that, and it's been a fun journey since.
So what's that, early 2016 or will it be mid 2016?
Yeah, so that was I got back from regionals about July. Yeah, and it's been nearly 2 years now.
Okay, fantastic. And so then you came across because obviously we met through the StrongFit community. Well, technically through Brock, because I met the StrongFit community through Brock as well. Yeah. Which is funny because I met Brock at regionals.
Yeah.
Probably it would have been 2015. I met him at regionals 2015. So it was when the weekend I started house sitting. So I did that, and it's coming up, finishing. I've done it for fucking 3 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been nuts, absolutely nuts. But, and so I met him, and like I went up there to do some work with a clothing brand, and I didn't even end up doing the same work. Actually, I ended up so I was just there. I'm like, I'm fucking not doing anything. I was going to do some sort of media stuff. Not that I was any good at that, but that's what they asked me to do because I put up a couple of videos, I think, on social media by that stage. And I'm just standing there, and I just started selling people clothes. So I'm like, fuck, I'm not doing anything else. I'm like, I'm gonna make this trip worth it. And so I made friends with Brock, and found out he had a gym, and then ended up doing some sort of mentoring with him on some level. And he's come across and spent some like interning weeks here.
Great.
And then especially the last one, mid last year before I went to the States, he was like, all right, you have to meet Julian. I think you and Julian, you talk about similar things. You guys would get along. And obviously we hosted the Strong Fit guys basically for a week and a half here almost. Even though they didn't do Coaches Week.
I know.
Stinky bastards. Mind you, I'm not happy with that because it means like, damn it, I have to go to San Diego.
I know. What a shame.
Yeah.
I have to go travel for it.
Absolutely. So, but we got along really, really well. And so there's a couple of podcasts that I've put up, but I think they put up the actual video ones as well.
Yeah.
So you've told me how you got in touch with the Strong Fit stuff. That was basically somebody said you should get in touch with them as well. Was that how it worked?
I'd been following Julian's stuff like from when he first did Barbell Shrugged like a few years ago. And a friend of mine had organised for them to do one of their first seminars outside of the States was in Vienna. So my friend had organised that.
Greg's gym?
No, it was like CrossFit Vienna or something.
Sure.
But that's how we met.
Real original.
But that's how they met Greg. And before he did all of the changes and stuff. But Simon, who was the one who had organised that, lives in Dubai. He's CrossFit seminar stuff.
Right, okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I really want to do that seminar. Like, the stuff that he says makes so much sense to me.
Yep.
So I'd like to see sort of where it's going and like just keep me updated, like what the next time that you're organising a seminar or whatever. Then he calls me one day, like I'm in the office, and he's like, so Julian's in town. Do you want to like come down and chat tomorrow afternoon? I'm like, yes.
What's with you and meeting strong men? You're like, yes. Every time you want to meet a strong man, you get...
Yes, I put on the voice.
And you get a little bit stiff. You're like,
oh.
Yes.
I know.
Here's a cocktail theme.
It should be.
Yeah.
So we ended up spending like the whole morning like with a few other coaches that I was working with at the time, and just talking through, like we did a podcast and sort of went through all of the stuff, and then I did a movement assessment with him. Mm-hmm. So I had seen that, I knew that like the inside of my hamstrings weren't working. I knew my lats weren't firing properly. The rehab specialists that I am good friends with were like, oh, so just do this. And it was like their idea of how to rehabilitate. I was like, what? So I just don't lift for the next and just do those. Like it, to me, it didn't seem like the best solution.
It's not applicable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, there has to be a better way. So when I did the assessment with Julian, and he was like, well, just do this. And, you know, he's like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
But I then spent 6 months fixing it myself, because he'd given me the like, well, this is your problem. These are some things that you can fix it, and then go and work out the problem yourself. And so I managed to fix my hamstrings, get my lats to work, build my back properly, and then as a consequence all my numbers were continuing. And to me it made a lot of sense that the stuff that he does and the way he trains would be a really good complement to powerlifting. And then with more of learning and following them around and sort of immersing myself and trialing all of the stuff, then to me it also made a lot of sense for like how you would train general population.
Right.
So like having spent years being at like competitive with CrossFit, I'm like, real normal people don't need this. Plus I knew how much pain I was in all the time when I was training to compete. I'm like, that's not actually good for general health.
And the thing about this is interesting about pain, right? Because I think this conversation is more welcomed now than it probably was a little while ago, right? Where it's like, definitely. How fucking dare you speak poorly of the thing that saved me from my own insecurity, not knowing that that's actually feeding my insecurity. And that's not everyone's story. I'm kind of painting a brush there. I get that. But it's more like, now it's kind of, they've realised that CrossFit has welcomed some sort of, it's not even constructive criticism, it's just the other point of view to go, well, pain and discomfort's two different things.
Yeah.
And so a workout should be uncomfortable.
Yes.
If you're going to push it, right? And I had this conversation with Richard about suffering. He's like, why do people have to suffer? Concentration camps are suffering this, and it's like, well, it's people's definition of meaning are different.
Yeah.
And so taking that into consideration.
I agree.
But the pain, you're talking like joint pain. You're talking like
hurt pain.
Yeah.
And that's being like a lot of the high level athletes that I'm exposed to will take painkillers or anti-inflammatories to train. That's not okay.
Well, they're not sponsored by pharma, so they won't put that on their Instagram.
No,
right?
Of course not. And they don't. It's all nice for everyone to see. Oh, like I've just trained like 5 times today.
Here's my vegan protein.
But they won't say like it hurts me to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And like when I went to squat, my hips blowing up, and it like everything hurts.
Yeah.
Like at some point, that's why like a load of them have had surgery this year in their off season. It's like they get up through the games and then something blows up and then they've had surgery, but they'll keep going and training. Like,
yeah.
Would not I've had to have surgery be well, maybe I should be doing things slightly differently?
Well, CrossFit is a game.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, you call a spade a spade. CrossFit is a game. And what I mean by that is like, that game, everyone's trying to play the same game, but not everyone is made to play that game.
Oh, of course.
And so some people are really sacrificing things, and that's fine. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying just understand what the fine print is, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, or they're aware of it, and this is the conversations I have so much. It's like, there's something deeper going on where they're just going to ignore it because they think that being seen or being the best or something that they unconsciously, it's fucking embedded in their deep that if they get X, then they're worthy, and they're not worthy until they have that. And people do that they do it with parenthood, right? Mm-hmm. But it's more so understanding that something like CrossFit, it's easy to do it. It's easy to be addicted to it. And I think CrossFit's done a lot of good. I'm not here.
100%.
Yeah, I've been to the games in California twice, and I'm probably not going to go to Madison ever until it gets back to California because I fucking love California. It's like, oh, we're going to Madison. I'm like, no, you're going to Madison. I'm not going to Madison. I'm going to go to Hermosa.
You're not the only one who's upset about that.
Nostalgic.
A lot of people are upset about that change. But
Probably Aussies most likely. But
yeah, I don't want to go to... No.
Yeah, I don't want to go to fucking Madison. It's like, I'm going to the States, but you're going to Madison. It's like, why? Mind you, actually, I think Wisconsin has like the second most downloads from my podcast.
Really?
Yeah, it was most for ages, but California took over. So
amazing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think old mate Mrs. Fitness Robson. What I said her name? Robin. I went Mrs. Robinson in my head.
I saw that.
Yeah, Mrs. Robinson. Cheers to you, Fitness Robin. Anyway, it's funny.
We need to make that a song for her.
Yeah, that's great. But the thing about it, like, is it's just, it's being able to step out and see the macro, right? And a lot of people struggle to do that. And I'm not saying, like, I may struggle to do that with something that I don't know yet. And in 5 years' time, I'll step back and I'm like, right.
Oh, of course.
That's what X is about.
That's
gotcha.
part of that life cycle. Like, everybody who's started CrossFit has done the, like, thrash myself until I, like, can't do it anymore. And then they're like, well, maybe there's a way I can do this a little smarter. Like, I don't know any person who's been in CrossFit for a period of time that doesn't have that same story to tell.
Yeah, I don't know either.
So, and it's the same in anything else. Like, you have to have experienced that to then be at a point where you can go, okay, well, maybe there's a better way. Now I'm more open to see what the other options are. It comes with education and maturity and willingness to see outside of your religion.
Yeah.
Because it's the same in other, like, powerlifters, anyone in any sport. I watch some of the incredible lifters and coaches in powerlifting, and they're like, the only way to do things is this way. And I'm like, well, yeah, you've been every time you train, you're sore. And it's like they're hating life, but this is the only way I can do things. And it's like, it's the same in any sport, but it takes someone getting to a point where either they break or at something that makes them question their belief system. And then you're going to be open to what other possibilities there are.
Yeah. When your truth has been proven to be false enough times, you'll start looking at different things, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because we've been operating for 7 years. And because CrossFit wasn't my first original influence into functional training, Jim Jones, DeFranco's, and a guy called Ross Anime CrossFit came later on, when I was like, people should like systemize this somehow. Someone was like, have you seen CrossFit? And I was like, they're just using momentum. And I went through that whole process, right? But it's like, because it wasn't the way that I'm like, well, I looked at it and I'm like, I don't think every single human being needs to do this. And that was like, and people, like, I would have a variation of functional movements, if you want to call them that, right? And people are like, oh, it's just CrossFit. It's just like, it's a fucking bodyweight squat, and it's kettlebell swings, and it's running. Like, it's not, and like, it was sort of this interesting thing. And as my business sort of grew, I mean, we were called everything from an amateur CrossFit gym that we would, we didn't want to pay for the affiliate fees, all these sorts of things. And it's like, that's not it. You guys don't get it. But it's like, well, as long as I understand it, it's a fine, and over time it'll come through. And also, the thing for me was, I think at some stage I wanted to probably go to CrossFit regionals or something, but it was totally like for not genuine, authentic reasons. It was something to do with probably being seen or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's that ego-driven
for sure.
reason. Like, oh, and I can say I've been to regionals.
Yeah. I mean, no one gives a shit, but it's also
it's so true.
They don't. Like, it's the same as like, I think that's why a lot of people will hide their injuries on route to something like regionals, right? And they'll hide that from the social media. They go, here is my highlight reel. It's the same as like, how many lifts have you missed to get that one?
Yeah.
Right? And like, I've done this, I probably learnt not to chase early on, but I definitely have variations of that. And it's just like, after a little while, I looked at myself, I'm like, what the fuck's the point of this?
Yeah. Like, what's your why? For you, like, if going to regionals is about, like, what other people think of you, at some point when you're constantly sore and, like, you're injured, like, there's no point to it anymore. For me, going to regionals was, like, I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And once I went, I was like, okay, well, I'm done now. Like, I have no desire to keep chasing that and try and get better next year. Like, I've had that experience. Now let's go on to another experience.
I should have just had that goal 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? But I watch other, like, people who are athletes who it's like, okay, so they've gotten to that peak. They've become the best in the world at what they do. And then external pressure is like, oh, well, but next year I have to come back and defend my title.
Yeah.
And then their year of training is about what other people want for them. And then it's interesting watching them and then in a position of like depression, having absolutely no joy in training. And like, none of us got into it because we hated training. Like, we all turned up and did all the training in the beginning because it was fun. So, like, to me, it's important that we can find that fun and know what your why is. It's not coming from an external place.
I think one of the biggest things, because it's a very like webbed space. I mean, the easy thing is just like there's so many like different connections to it, right? And so it's kind of like, look, if your time in the gym is taking away from other areas in your life, it may be time to consider or reconsider, or at least, audit your priorities. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be spending time in the gym. And I think that's where some people go all or nothing. They're like, what, you just want me to stop? It's like, no, I want you to stop reacting like that. But that's out of my control. It's like, it's really important to audit. Otherwise, all we do is just operate from goals we had when we were 15.
Yeah.
And what the fuck does that person know? Like, right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I can guarantee I knew nothing then.
Totally, right? And it's just like, that person's running my frames today. And so it's healthy to audit and to go, hang on a sec, what's actually really important to me? Because it changes.
Yeah.
And it's something that it's like, oh no, I think I know myself. It's like, I don't know if you do. And it's like, what I mean by that is like, continually ask the difficult questions, and I think that's something that a lot of people will avoid. I know I have for a long time in certain areas, and so it's just like, that's where your truth lays and your happiness. It's on understanding that, not trying to prove something to someone.
Yeah.
Even yourself, even trying to prove something to yourself is actually conditional happiness.
Of course. And it's asking those difficult questions of yourself regularly, because like the things that are important to you right in this moment won't be the same as they are in 6 months' time. So like that's always going to be a moving target. So you have to keep reassessing, asking the hard questions of yourself, putting yourself in those uncomfortable places, and sort of addressing things that maybe you don't like in yourself and whatever else. Like I explained to you when I first came back, I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I had left my life in Dubai after 11 years, and I came to Australia with like nothing but my dog.
He's here, by the way.
He's awesome. He's sitting by the door, like upset that he can't go outside.
We'll definitely show Figgy.
Yeah. So
to the people.
But
give the people what they want.
Yeah, because who doesn't want to see a dog? And he's a very cute sausage dog. But my whole intention was I wanted to come and give myself space to see what happened and see what came up. Because we get so much, like for 11 years, I've worked my ass off, and I've worked really long days, and I've been lucky to have like a 2-day weekend, and I had holidays, and I've had amazing adventures, and I've built great relationships, but I was so constantly on the go, and with training goals and all the other things that I have happening, that I hadn't given myself space to go, well, where do I really want to be? Like, where do I want to be in a year's time? Is what I'm doing right now what I want for myself? So I had to remove myself from that place I was in so that I could, properly assess.
Right.
And not everyone has the luxury of being able to do that. I am very aware that my situation is very lucky. But this last sort of 5 months has really given me time to reassess. And now I'm going forward with much more clear intention, because I gave myself that space and asked myself hard questions and really addressed some of the things that had been holding me back. Yeah,
I think one of the, like, it's pretty brave and courageous to do that sort of stuff. People will be like, that's not courageous, the people in front line is courageous. It's like, yeah, there's different levels of it.
That is also courageous, but it's different. It
is for sure. What I'm, to remove yourself out of that situation, and you did mention, like, a lot of people don't have the ability to do that, right? And or the luxury. And it's like, well, yes and no. And I say yes and no because to move countries, to be able to have that scope, how old are you now?
33.
33. At 33, for a lot of people, it isn't actually,
no.
Right? But that's what the thing is, that people you don't need to move countries to do it.
I did it in an extreme version.
You completely removed yourself from the situation so you could look, see the forest and the trees. But it's sort of like, a lot of people will be like, well, I can't do that. I've got this and this and this and this. It's like, yeah. And then you retire, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And like, this is even with, with my girlfriend, I'm like, we get so busy, and we're both type 7s, which is just fucking like, just busy. Do the Enneagram Rahidi test, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I'm also a type 7.
That's correct.
So it's like,
yeah, exactly right. Yes. So, but the thing about it is, I'm like, hang on a sec. If we don't make time to chill out together, I know what happens, right? And the next thing is there's a couple of kids and I don't know you.
Exactly.
And it's just like, it's not that I don't want that, because that is allowing like, I don't want that. It's like, well, that's probably what you're going to get now. But it's more so going, well, rather than not wanting it, it's like, what do I want? And this is what's interesting for a lot of people, is a lot of people will be like, oh, they won't be able to actually define or decide what they want, but they can tell you what they don't want.
Yeah.
It's like rocking up to a restaurant and being like, looking at the menu and going, yeah, I don't want the chicken schnitzel, thanks. You're like,
there's 100 other things.
yeah, they're like, what? They're like, yeah, I don't want the chicken schnitzel. No, but what would you like to eat? I just don't want the chicken schnitzel. It's like, it was like, well, so you want the fucking chicken parmigiano? Like, what do you want here? And it's really important. You know, I think it's important on both scales to go, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. Right. And then also understanding, presupposing wanting something means you don't have it. But it's like, to give yourself space to ask those questions, and to give yourself permission to have people help you ask those questions. And also, which is a big one, right? It's like, as an adult, we're meant to have it all figured out.
And it's like complete fallacy. Like, you have to, like, some of the last few months, the biggest realizations have come from like my coaches that have been able to guide me in asking the right questions. And it's not about like having someone tell you what's right for you, but it's someone that gives you the space, and then will like and like it's asking you the right questions so you can sort of then make up your mind what's going on. Yeah, I have 3 people that have helped me a lot in different aspects of my life. There's a business coach, well, 2 business coaches that are slightly different, and a life coach, and all of them in the last few months have asked hard questions and given me amazing guidance that if I hadn't had that, I don't think I would have had as much growth as I have in this last 5 months.
The word there being guidance, right? And this is where it's good that a lot of people do seek that sort of guidance. And this is going on from our conversation in the seminar that we had on the weekend, right? And like a lot of people will probably get to a stage where they do want to coach, but it's funny, some people want to be told what to do, and then they like, it's like, hang on a sec, like you don't, it just creates this, once again, this codependency, right?
Yeah.
But even then they're like, you know, the person that's open to being guided, and then they go back to their gym that they own and then tell everyone what to do. And there's a certain level of honey and vinegar, there's a certain level of leading somebody, and a certain level of like, mate, you just got to do the work now. But the idea that someone has a better knowledge for what you should do with your life is like the complete distrust of yourself to deal with reality.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And it's like, there's a quote, I don't know, I remember hearing it from Alan Watts, but I don't actually know who said it. And it was like, and it really stopped me in my tracks, and it made me realize how often I'm like, you should do this. You know what you should do? And it's not like I was shooting on everyone. Some of these people I was actually coaching or something, but it's just like, all right, here's what you should do. And, you know, maybe it's because I didn't want to talk to them. I have no idea. But I'd be lying if I said that I didn't do that from time to time in the past. And there's this quote that goes, "Please let me help save you or you'll drown," said the monkey to the fish, putting it up a tree. And it's like this idea that I know what's best for you based on what's best for me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
So having people there to... And this is the other like paradox of the industry, is how many people think that they're meant to have it all figured out, so they don't get a coach. And it's like, but aren't you asking people to be coached by you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, it's kind of like there's a paradox there where somebody, you know, and people will learn in their own rate, or they'll build more self-awareness at their own rate around it. It's not to say, like, I'm not having this conversation from any form of, you know, I don't know what the right word is, soapbox, standing up from a pedestal and saying that. It's like, no, I literally every single week will go through and be like, right, okay, what am I working on this week? What am I pulling apart this week? And I'll speak to my coach fortnightly or every 3 weeks, and it's like I end up being humbled every single month. I'm humbled multiple times where I'm like, it's so obvious. Until now, it wasn't, but now it is, and unraveling that.
And that's so much like the most, like the people that I look to and I'm like, oh my God, they've got their shit together. Like, you talk to them and they're like, I have fucking no idea. And I think that's sort of part of that, being able to understand that none of us really have any idea and we all need help. And then putting yourself in a position where someone who's maybe just a little bit more further in the journey can help you in that process. Like, that's a really important realization to have.
When did you have it?
So I have always, even from the time I was young, I had people that that mentored me. So I had, like, when I was a teenager, I had a dance teacher who was...
What kind of dance did you do?
I did contemporary, mainly.
I don't know what contemporary is. I'm trying to think of a dance floor. No. Well, I did some, like, hip-hop, and I tried to break dance for a while, and I did, like, jazz and ballet, and right.
I, like, studied lots of different styles, but I was mainly contemporary. But, I like taught teenage dance class, like kids dance classes and stuff when I was a teenager. But one of my dance teachers at the time was someone that I very much respected as, like, just a human. And a lot of things, there were times where I was just, like, frustrated while I was teaching a class or something, and she would always have amazing advice. Like, and be able to guide me to make better decisions. And when things were really hard in, like, my family, she was like, her and her husband actually were a really good support network for me. But I think, like, my parents were quite religious. So, like, we grew up in the church, and it's that idea that there's always elders that... So I think I was raised with that idea that you should be looking for guidance from other people. But I think we talked about it, Tim Ferriss says, like, if you think you don't have time to meditate, you probably need, like, a few hours. I had always been like, that type 7, always busy, always working on lots of different things, and I was like, oh, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't have time to do that. Like, and it's been in the last few years I've started meditating, and I think the people that I've attracted into my life are sort of the kind of people that are constantly searching. So I don't know, I can't pinpoint a specific time, but I know that it was after getting into training and competing, there was a point where I was doing everything because, like, I wasn't happy with myself, and I had to start reassessing and being like, well, that's not really a good place to be operating from. And then I started, like, just investigating more. A lot of the books that you've got have been, like, I've been reading a lot of that sort of stuff, and in the last few years, and going, oh, well, this might be a better place to be.
So how do you, the puppy is whinging. How do you, well, which recommendations, rather, around finding a mentor?
Find someone that will, to me, it's someone that will not let you settle. Like, I need to be able to be completely honest with them. So, but also that, I think sometimes it's easy to be like, oh, they're a cool person, but then you put on, like, this facade of like trying to be something for them. So you need to be able to be completely authentic and vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's the only place you can grow from. So, and then for me, the people that I consider mentors are people who will call me forth. Like, if they see that I'm doing something and I'm not being my best self, they'll say something. Because again, it's easy to be like, oh, this one person's my business coach because they make me feel great all the time.
Yeah.
Or, whatever part of your life that person is helping you and like mentoring or coaching, whatever position I guess that person has. But yeah.
Have you ever either A, had to get rid of a mentor, or B, a mentor get rid of you?
I haven't had a mentor get rid of me.
Oh, you haven't lived.
I feel like that's a story you have to tell.
Maybe. If I dig around, I'll probably find something. But yeah.
No, I haven't had a mentor get rid of me, but I have moved on from. I think sometimes there's a point where, like, I believe that this is true for all relationships, that they're not always going to be the relationship that you are going to have like long term. Sometimes a certain friendship is the person that needs to be around for that period of time for you to learn from, or for you to learn together, and then that growth, that time will change, and then because you can only have so many hours in the day, like you can't invest in like hundreds and hundreds of people all the time. So I have had mentors that I have worked with for say a year, and then it gets to a point where, okay, well, I've learnt as much as I needed to learn from that person at that time. I'm still friends with them, but I don't have the same mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah. Okay. And how would you know to come to the point where it's like, I think this is finished now? Or was there like, is this a mentor that maybe you paid or one that you didn't pay?
I've had both. For me, it's always been a very intuitive thing.
Okay.
It's just, but I've go off on intuition for most things, but that has just very much been, I sensed it was time to move on.
Yep.
And sometimes I start to get that feeling, and then it's like when I was looking for the powerlifting coach, when I put that intention, I'm like, oh, I think it might be time to change. Then I meet the person who needs to be the next person in that journey. Mm-hmm. So it's been similar to that when it was, okay, so I started feeling that it was time to change that relationship, and then the next person that I needed to learn from would appear.
Well, they were probably already there, right? But it's more so, this is what's really interesting, because this is something that I find very interesting. People talk about attracting things into your life, which is a very me space, right? Whereas projecting out there is like a very we space, right? And so it's sort of like, if you project, then the chances are you'll attract. But if you focus on attraction, you're not focusing on contribution, right? And so it's sort of like, if you're not projecting out there what's important for you next, the person that could be is right there, but you're not looking for them.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the thing where, this is like, I just posted a podcast about the art of letting go just the other day. It's like, we need to order, I often use a coffee example. I'm like, if you're holding a coffee cup and you're at a cafe, they're not going to come back around to you and say, would you like another coffee? But you go, this might be the only chance that I could ever have a coffee. So I'm going to hold on to this coffee for as long as I can.
Yeah.
But as soon as you throw the coffee cup out and you're there and you don't have a coffee cup, you let it go, people will be like, would you like another coffee or a whiskey or anything else, right? Yeah, it might be after midday now, somewhere.
It is after midday.
we could have whiskeyed today, for sure. But so that's where it's like, in order to accept the next thing, we have to let something go. And it's almost like trying to step forward with your back foot glued to the ground.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't want to step off this, but I want the next thing. It's like you're not fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you expect the universe to be like, I'll plan it out for you perfectly. When I earn just enough in this business, then I'll leave my job. It's like there's so rarely the story of that, right? There's actually more common the story of I made it happen when I was forced to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so it's the kind of thing of like the idea of attracting and projecting, I think, is really something to go into, because there's a lot of talk, and all you need to do is jump on social media and going through the spiral we touched on the weekend, and there's fucking spending heaps more time on that. Really, you'd spend so much time on that. It's like majority of the Western world is in the orange space at the moment, which is very me. It's very enterprise and entrepreneurial. So it's definitely in this space of going, you know, the vibe attracts the tribe. It's like, cool, but we're focusing on attracting there, right? Not as in projecting your vibe and let the rest of the shit sort itself out.
Yeah.
It's your vibe will attract your tribe. So the goal is to attract the right people, so I better be good.
Yeah.
It's like...
Rather than like, what is it that I put out into the world that's going to benefit other people, and then the right people will come that need that thing.
What's coming through me that feels genuine?
Yeah.
Right? It's that. Exactly right. And it's sort of like, this is almost ties back into early conversation where it's like, you then won't be authentic. And people feel authenticity.
100%.
Right? It's not this like, hey, how to be authentic. It's like, oh, I'll take notes. It's like, no, being authentic is... Trying to be authentic is like trying to breathe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, yeah, try to breathe. It's like, I'm just breathing. It's like, yeah, that's exactly right. You're just breathing. Just be, rather than trying to be something. Mm-hmm. You know, that's human beings, not human doings. You know,
that's true.
Badoom. Not mine. Not my quote. So it's really interesting, I think, in knowing, because the mentor thing is very interesting, and I sort of look at it and go, well, I do a lot of mentoring, and then I have had plenty of mentors. But my other question, because I actually work with as many females as I do males, right? Sometimes more. And I'm interested from a female's perspective. What are some of the books or some of the females that were influential in, you know, in your life? I noticed this mainly from my perspective. I'm like, I probably should spend a bit more time on there. And, you know, I've looked more into Brene Brown and a couple of different sort of female psychologists that I find quite fascinating. But it's like, when I went to the States, especially the first 2 years, it was just blokes.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, okay, well, there's females. But as a young male, I looked up to men. I didn't look up to a female and be like, damn, I want to be like her.
Yeah.
And it's not like I didn't value that individual. It's because a boy wants to grow up into a man. So what am I looking at here that I can grow into? So what have been some of the bigger female influences for you then?
I think for me, like growing up, there was that dance teacher. I remember very vividly having my year 6 primary school teacher, this one moment where I was like having this breakdown because I hadn't done an assignment on time or something, and which wasn't uncommon for me, but I felt so bad because
or
the not doing something on time.
That's not type 7 at all.
No, not at all. So and I remember her being like, I can't take away Christmas from you. Like, this really has no, like, grand scale value.
Right.
And I was like...
So saying that she can't take away Christmas means, like, this will blow over.
Yeah. Like, it's an assignment. Like, so you didn't do it. But, like, the big things in life are still going to happen.
Right.
And I remember at that age, like, I remember, like, the scene like it was yesterday. So I've had people, like, teachers like that as I've grown up that were quite influential just in my experience. But then you mentioned Brene Brown. I've read a number of her things recently and really love her work. Gretchen Rubin has done some great books. I love from a... have you heard of any of Esther Perel's work?
She's the
a relationship
sexologist.
Yeah.
Is that an actual position?
I don't know what she would title herself as, but like a relationship counselor.
Yeah, she's. I've seen her on. I listened to her TED talk, and I listened to. She's like French or something. She's infidelity.
Belgian, I think.
Yeah, European.
Yeah.
Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
Specific, whatever.
But the way that she looks at how people interact in relationships, I think, is really quite interesting and good stuff. And I think sort of being now a woman in my 30s, and it's the way relationships are now is, for me, is different, because it's not like, teens and 20s, it's a different thing. Now it's like, well, most people my age have some kind of baggage.
Caused by the teens and the 20s, right? That were caused by before.
So like a lot of guys, like if I was dating someone, I'd be like, oh, I was married before, I was this.
Yeah, you're
before.
on round 2.
Yeah, so then what you want out of a relationship, and like what like your value system's has like evolved, and then how you interact together and all of those things. That's why I really like her stuff, because it's not this concept of like you just get married and it's perfect forever, like
yeah. It's interesting. So I talked about marriage, not as in getting married with my girlfriend, but the concept of marriage, just to clarify. And she'll listen to this now and roll her eyes, but it's more like, I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm impartial to it. I'm not necessarily going, I really want to get married one day. It's like, married is just telling the state that, I bet you half my shit will stay together. Like that's me simplifying, and I fully understand that, and I don't think that directly. It's more like going, I just don't know if the pros outweigh the cons. I'm definitely not saying that I would not want to get married, but it's more common nowadays to go, we don't need to get married in order to love each other.
Yeah.
And so that's that in itself is very interesting, but it's sort of like we're in new territory where, divorce rates are through the roof compared to where they were, how long ago? Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even further, 30, 40 years ago. But it's just the same thing. It's like, I think it's like, what is it? 1 out of 2 marriages?
Yeah.
Like end in divorce. And
yeah,
so
it's probably higher than that, to be honest.
Yeah, and so it's the kind of thing where, for a lot of people, they're looking at that now, and I'm just not in a stage of my life where I have. It's just they've looked at it now and they're like, well, with those odds, what's the point? Why are we going to pay the lawyers heaps of money, potentially later on down the track, but we also have to, let's just have a party and go from there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know enough on it, really. I haven't looked into it enough to make some serious distinctions on it, but it's...
Well, to me, it's more like marriage as a construct was originally because we needed to protect our tribe. We needed our community to stay strong. So you would marry to keep your family name and to protect the children, but the whole structure was completely different. Like the way our communities interacted, everything was different to what it is now. And people stayed together because that was the agreement to keep them alive. Whereas now the negotiation is different. We don't have to stay together to stay alive. So if we're staying together, it has to be a conscious decision for us to be with that person. And that brings up all other things, because, like any of your relationships, like your best friend, there's going to be times you renegotiate the friendship depending on where you're at in your lives and what's important to you. And so then if you've got in a marriage, then you have to renegotiate a load of other things. Like if you've got kids or not, then there's going to be and who's working and who's providing and whatever else. But then it's like there's going to be negotiations around like your sexual relations, and the concept that someone's just going to be with one person forever is just like, to me, it's insanity. So there has to be, like, if you're going to be with that person, it's the thing that Esther says is like, everyone will be married multiple times in their life. It's your choice whether it's to the same person or someone else.
Right.
And it's that, like, renegotiation each time.
Okay. Yeah. Because I suppose you're somewhat of a different person. I mean, like, even when I first started dating, I'm a different person today.
Of course.
Or an evolved person from there, right?
But if she never changed,
Totally.
you're becoming a different person to who she met.
Yeah.
And if you're not then making the decision to stay together and keep learning about each other, then you, at some point, that's where you grow apart.
Yep.
And then there's that whole, like, we're living in the same house, but we're strangers.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the whole, like, goes back to what I said before. It's like, I know how this works. I've seen it happen. Mm-hmm. And over the last 14 years, especially the last probably 5 years where I've been more aware and conscious of it, it's like I've seen a lot of men in their 40s go through divorce, right?
Yeah.
And I say men because I suppose I've been more conscious of it with men. I've had more conversations with men. Yet obviously women are going through divorces as well.
Yeah.
And there's also impact on that arm. Like it's not to say that it's one-sided. It's just I've had more conversations with men about it. It's also because I'm pro men having a conversation around mental health.
Yeah.
And they can do that without it being emotional baggage, so to speak.
No.
There's this dark connotation to, like, just getting around in a circle and talk about our feelings. I remember seeing this tweet. It was like, in 2017, we're going to be so advanced, and it's like 2017. A heap of men with beards sitting around talking about emotions or feelings. And I think that's pretty funny. And I'm like, haha, I do that. I've got a beard.
I have feelings.
Yeah, I got the feels. But it's kind of like, no, we need to be able to be emotionally intelligent, which I think is extremely crucial. And it's very crucial for us to teach our daughters and sons, but I'm going with a male reference here, to be able to understand their emotions, to be emotionally intelligent about it.
Definitely.
And so the whole idea of the rates of male suicide over 40 is just like, it's uncanny. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons why I've had more conversations with men about it, because I know what the rates are. And as soon as I'm probably more aware of knowing that, that happens, and it's like, okay, I've seen the court system not do too good, right, with this sort of situation. And it's like, some of them didn't see it coming. And I'm like, mate, that's on you.
Yeah.
This is difficult. I get it. But, and I'm 27 at the time, or 28 now. I'm 29 now. It's like, but if you didn't see it coming, you got to ask questions around, and, of course they would. But it's just like, I remember being a kid and when my parents split up, I was 8, right? And apparently Dad told me this. Apparently, like, Dad was like, and he's a big guy. He's 6 foot. He's probably, at the time, he was easily over 100 kilos. He's sitting on the ground and he's fucking done. And I just walk up to the room and sit there next to him, put my arm over his shoulder. I'm like, it'll be all right. I don't remember this at all. I was an 8-year-old boy. It's like, I don't know. I probably thought cricket was on a saying, right? But in that circumstance, it's like, we obviously, as children at the time, I just saw it as such a simple thing, and it's just not. It's just this intertwined. It's the importance of continual communication and honest communication about things that are difficult is so crucial. And this is where if you can be with someone that you're able to unravel with at your own times, it doesn't have to be together, then a good marriage, or at least a good relationship, should be a good wrestling match, right? You should be with someone that you can contend with. And I say this, I'm like, I don't ever want to look at my partner and go, you complete me.
Oh God. No.
I want to be able to say I'm complete and I choose you. And like, I don't want you to just agree with me for the sake of agreeing with me, but at least bring something to the table that we can pull apart, so that you and I both leave here better for it. And that's not, I don't want to fight, but I want to be able to have some sort of difficult conversation at least from time to time, because I feel like if we don't, then we're avoiding things and they're only going to show up later on.
Definitely.
So Brene, Gretchen, and Esther.
Yeah, they're probably females that like most recently I've been reading a lot of their work and loved. Not females, but have you ever read Seed of the Soul?
No.
So that actually has a foreword written by Maya Angelou, and it's got and Oprah.
Right.
And both of them write that book was like massively informative and changed
Seat of
the Soul.
Yep.
Oprah says that it's like it changed how she does business, how she ran her program, and that was the sort of thing that really made her take off, because it changed the way she interacted with everyone she works with. It changed how she made decisions about who would be on her show and everything for 30 years ago when she first read it or something. Okay. You'll enjoy it because it's about our personality versus our soul, so our ego versus our soul, and operating from either that place of our personality, fear, our traumas and whatever else, or operating from the soul place of like love and acceptance. And then when you can have awareness and then learn to live from that place of soul rather than the place of ego. But it has the first time I read it, it was like, I was raised in a very Christian household, and it never felt authentic to me. I used to watch people in the church and think they're so hypocritical. They would preach all of these things, but I could see that that's not really how they were living. And so over my adult life, I've been like researching other religions and trying to like come to my own belief system. And when I read Seed of the Soul, it was like, oh, someone's written it all down. Like it was like, oh, this makes sense. It was everything that I had come to as my own belief system, but someone else had written it.
Yeah.
With much more clarity than I could have ever done myself. So that is a very good book, and I highly recommend it. The Untethered Soul is another one. It's a shorter book, but it's about mindfulness and all of that stuff, it's a nice one too.
Cool. Jesse, thank you very much for the chats today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
I always love chats.
Absolutely.
With
you. Yeah. 2 type 7s.
Wide ranging.
It's like, so what's your favorite brand of tennis ball?
It's like, and we're off again.
Indeed. Now, for anyone that wants to find out more about you, they don't have to fly to Dubai. They can just jump online. Where are they going to find you?
On the Instagram is the best place at the moment, at Jesse Akister. And yeah, when I do new things, I always post it on there. So
delicious. Otherwise, until next time.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Peace and pizza. See you guys.